Good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Welcome to the Indian Military History Podcast. I am Vikram Dalal, and today we have with us a very, very special guest, an actual war hero from the Indian Army, Colonel Mehar Singh Dahiya. Sir, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much.
So, sir, you were awarded the Shaurya Chakra for your bravery and your determination to the country during your stint at Siachen in 1984-85. Um, we want to sort of go into the details of that, but I wanted to sort of set up some context around what the event was. So thanks for joining the podcast, sir. It's truly an honor to have you on the show, and thanks for taking all the time.
It's mine too.
So, all right, so context. So a lot of people know about Siachen, like all the struggles that our soldiers go through in Siachen, but a lot of people may not know that Siachen was neither in Pakistan nor in India's control till 1984. Right? It was vacant. 1984, India launches Operation Meghdoot. We go in and capture the heights, and subsequently Pakistan tries and recapture those heights, and a lot of battles were fought in those times. Right? We wanted to go into that, but before we go into those specific scenarios, I wanted to sort of understand, uh, in being in such an unprecedented scenario, an unprecedented challenging situation task, what what would make a person take up those challenges, and what would be their background? And like I think of myself being in a situation like that. I can't even imagine that I could stay for more than 1 hour. I could survive in a situation like that. So, sir, if you could walk us through your prior background before Siachen, and all of your postings, your journey within the army, and prior to the army as well, and how it prepared you for that particular momentous moment where you faced such unprecedented challenges.
To talk broadly on what you have brought out, see, I hail from a farmer soldier family in a village in district Sonipat, Haryana. Uh, my father was a Dafedar in 17 Pune House, the most decorated regiment of the Indian Army,
Right.
and he served for 4 years in Second World War. My grandfather was also in one of the cavalry regiment. And there were other officers from my village who were the role model, who took part in 1962 and 65 operations. My father, being an army man, he sent me to, he recently started education in Sainik schools. And that time it used to be matriculate. And I joined the National Defense Academy in my first chance. The spirit, or the how it prepared, that apart from the family background, farmer soldier heritage that I'm a part of, Indian Army and its institutions like nurseries like Sainik School,
Right.
and the finest training academy in the world, and one of the finest ones in National Defense Academy. And of course, IMA. When I got into posting to Ladakh Scouts, I'm from basically Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry. One of the earliest directly commissioned officers coming to the regiment of Jammu and Kashmir, militia at that time. Later on, it became light infantry.
So if you don't mind me interrupting you, what's
Yeah.
the difference between a militia versus a regular Indian Army regiment?
See, this aspect has not been really propagated and known. In 1947-48, when the country divided,
Right.
Kashmir was a very peculiar situation. The Maharaja had left, and so far, Jammu Kashmir state forces have literally disintegrated because certain units went to Pakistan.
Right.
And there was even mutiny in some of the units. So the whole state forces had become defunct. It was at that time the normal people men, women, and even children, they rose to the occasion to defend their motherland against the Kabilis who came down the Srinagar Valley from Uri, Mora, Rampur, and subsequently to Srinagar. So these people were these volunteers. They were organized into J&K Guards, then little more or into militia. Militia is a irregular, not really on the lines of Indian Army organization, but not really what Indian Army units have been.
So
So we, yeah.
they probably don't have all of the training that a regular regiment goes through. They're ad hoc formations
You
that have
can
been
say
created.
you can say like in paramilitary forces that
I
you
see.
have not at par with Indian Army level of training and tasking and all that.
Okay.
But they did take part in the 47, 48 in a different form,
Right.
and they took part in 62, 65, and even 71 operation. They were basically taking care of line of communications and certain places. They were part of actual combat too, but as add-on to brigade formations and things.
Right. Okay.
And depending on the good work, they were merged with the Indian Army in 74. And I'm proud to say that when we started, we were only 8 battalions.
Mhm.
We are 20 plus now.
Wow.
And we are one of the highest decorated regiment of Indian Army today.
Wasn't I think Captain Vikram Batra was also from
No, he was from Jack Riff.
Jack Riff.
He was
Oh, so not
Jack
Jack Riff.
Rifle.
Okay.
There's a confusion between Jack Riff and Jack Li.
Sorry about that.
No issue, no issue. It is a general
Yeah.
this thing. So we have affiliation. The Ladakh Scout didn't have a permanent cadre of their own. Now they're a full-fledged regiment and they have directly commissioned officer of their own. During our time, it used to be regimental affiliation. That means Jackalai, Jackref, and Dogra officers will go for their will go on affiliation for 2 years and come back to the parent regiment. That was the arrangement, and that is how I reached there.
Okay. So you joined Jack Lai and as a young officer over there, and I guess after that you were posted to the Rann of Kutch.
My battalion, 3 Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry. After I did my tenure as instructor in infantry school, Mao, I came back to my battalion and we got posted to Rann of Kutch. Rann of Kutch was another extreme kind of a sector where the temperature used to go up to plus 51 degree temperature.
That is insane. I was thinking about that. I think a normal person who's not gone through the rigorous training of the Indian Army would not survive over there.
This is a very thrilling exposure there too. I had. I used to be as a young officer, used to be on the border most of the time, and I'm proud to say that from plus 51 degrees, I was moved to minus 60 degrees. So there's a different span of 100 degrees in that.
Wait, so right after Rann of Kutch, where you were at plus 51 degrees, you were directly moved to the glaciers of Siachen at minus 60.
Exactly.
Oh my God. How was that? Like that is just a drastic change. How was that? That would take a toll on your body, right? On your body and mind.
No. It is my village mooring that has been my strength. You asked me that question, I'll pen it. What made me or what make people like us to hold on in extreme situations like that prevailed? I subsequently cover this up when I talk of the actual operation that I underwent.
You went from Rann of Kutch plus 51 degrees to minus 60 degrees at Siachen. How would, if you could walk us through the history of Siachen and how the whole battle was sort of created, or how the moment came about, if you could just walk us through that would, I think, will be very helpful for us to set up context around Operation Meghdoot and Operation Saddle.
You see, I will talk this, I correlated how I got inducted and how I was moved, because that is the time when things were actually happening.
Mhm.
I landed up in Ladakh Scouts near Leh. We have our regimental center in
Okay.
October 1984. And we have mandatory 6 nights of acclimatization. And I was straight away pushed to, loaded in a 3-ton, and took 2 days to reach the extreme of the Indus Valley, where the Indus River just flows into India,
Mhm.
and it is spread out not more than 2 to 3 feet deep,
Mhm.
and the trouts are clearly visible, and you can catch it by hand, things like that.
Nice. If you could just, I had a question about acclimatization. What does the process entail? Is it any specific activities that you have to do, and as a part of the process of acclimatization to higher altitudes, or is it just staying there for that much amount of time and then that automatically, prepares a body for it?
No, it is a well set out program for all those who undergo acclimatization.
Hmm.
It used to be 6 nights earlier. We get ready in the morning after breakfast and go on a higher place, gain altitude 2,000, 3,000, and come down to the base and sleep there. So the body gets used to the oxygen intake, because the oxygen, it is thinner,
Right.
and the lungs have to really work up and get used to this, lesser component of oxygen in the environment.
So on a
So
daily basis, you have to go on a hike.
yeah. We
Okay,
are.
that makes
It's a
sense.
it's a military training. It's part of our training. We
Right.
get organized in our squad, in our group, and go up, do exercises, and come back and sleep for at a lower altitude, so that the body gets used.
Right. Right.
In case of Siachen, when December 84, suddenly I was moved, and I was actually getting prepared for another task in another sector. But there was some emergency. The officer there then had to
Mhm.
leave, and I had to be rushed.
Okay.
I reached the base camp. You see, it was approachable that time by a vehicle track. No roads were there. But yes, the vehicle reached up to the base camp. There we stayed. It was a very bare minimum, certain tents. We have snow tents.
Mm.
It was tent as accommodation, and not that good, but yes, we did. We have extreme cold climate clothing that we were given. Certain components, some special clothings were still coming,
Okay.
but they were not available to everyone. A very handful of sets were there to be
Okay.
used.
So you were at the base camp close to Siachen. You actually, if the temperature is around -60 and you are living in tents, and
Uh,
the
yeah.
like those, yeah, they're heated tents, but they're still tents. It's kind of like they're still preparing the base camp
Mm.
up to the level of what it should be for a proper base camp to be there, right? And then you have these clothes that are not completely adequate, I would imagine, because the actual uniforms were still coming in. So you were living in tents and you did not have all of the adequate clothing as well.
You see, as I mentioned earlier, Indian Army, because of its very high level, globally tested high ethos, is able to perform in any kind of environment, irrespective of what it is stocked or whatever it is provided for.
Right.
So that spirit is, it is something unique. Number one. Number two, if you see the provisioning in light of how the time it has, you see, 84, we were taken by surprise, in the sense that we were not that prepared. Uh, Equipment wise, even manpower had to be pulled in from within the command. and a whole lot of young people not really having any idea as to what does Siachen look like. Even the formation which were training for it, without any physical visit or exposure or operating in those environment, they were just creating a situation of that type in training in Gulmarg area. And even the name, they used to call mountain. We have mountain brigades, but they were saying this thing, Alpine Brigade, and so on, so on. So there was a huge uncertainty, a lack of information about actual things in ground.
Wow.
So that is how I landed up there. And the temperature, that time it was absolutely virgin. At the base camp, it is near the moraine. You see, it's a frozen kind of a stream. And just at the base, there were, must have been about 10 odd tents, 1 or 2 for as a medical, basic medical care, and cooking. And then its living was absolutely rudimentary.
Right.
There was nothing, in fact, even the snow tents were not up to the mark. They were not new, but yes, we made ourselves.
And how
Clothing.
old and how old were you at that time?
I had 11 years of service. I was about 31, 32.
Okay. Wow.
At the peak of my health and in my career too, because I was appearing for my staff college exam, mandatory career course. And my friends, they appeared from the best of places, and I appeared from Demchok and Fukche. So, that is how.
That's far from ideal. That's far from ideal.
It was a wick lamp and in a snow tent. So anyway, that is the part of life.
Right.
I stayed there for 6 days, and then since there was an emergency, then we had to commence our journey. We were 5-7 people with me, of my own company that I was a company commander, Delta Company of Ladakh Scouts.
Right.
And each one of us carrying our own personal loads, about 10 odd kgs. And we start walking.
What was the emergency? If you could just set up some context around what had happened prior to that.
See, the officer who was Tiger, we call company commander Tiger Siala. Siala is the end line which had been occupied in 84. Okay. Siala and Bilafonda. There were 2 passes, and Siala being the main. So company commander Siala had to move down. He had to appear for some exam.
Okay.
And that's why there was an emergency for me to reach as early as possible.
Okay. Till this time, Operation Meghdoot had not happened.
No, it had already happened in 84. Okay. And we had occupied, and we were in occupation.
Okay.
Troops were located all along about 70 kilometers of Siachen. I'm talking about the main Siachen, from the base camp to Siala Pass.
Right. If you could talk a little bit about Operation Meghdoot and sort of give us context around that, and then we could move forward to the situation that you were in. Would that be okay?
Yeah, it's fine. You see, after 71, the Indian Army was in a different, victor's mindset. But like a very determined any adversary, Pakistan was always exploring things, and they found an excuse in the undemarcated areas of the mountain areas of Jammu and Kashmir, and they started sponsoring certain an expedition of foreign countries, thereby claiming that since we are sending and sponsoring foreign expeditions, so area belongs to us.
Okay.
And where, on the contrary, the Indian Army, you see, like the Haryanvi saying, "Jagda jhootha aur kabja sacha."
Right.
So, keeping that in mind, Indian Army, without laying any other claims like the adversary, they straightway went and occupied in April 1984. So when I went there, we were already in occupation of the major part of the glacier and the heights dominating it in Siala and in Belafonda.
How big is the glacier? If you could put in some light on that, is it like in terms of area, or in terms of if a person starts to walk, how much time would it take for them to cover the whole area, or in any other way, so to sort of give us a sense on how big it is?
Uh, if you say the Nubra Valley, from there you uh, you start going towards Karakoram, the pass. You drive in a vehicle up to the base camp, the moraine that we call. Moraine is a settled kind of a thing, snowy, and then land also starts getting seen. And thereafter, when you start walking above the moraine up to Siala, we had established about 5 camps. The camp, distance between 2 camps used to be a reasonable 6 to 7 hours walk, a day walk.
Oh, and how many people are there in one camp?
You see, it was apart from the basic body maintaining it, say about a section, about a 10 odd people who stay there, make sure the accommodation is there. They cook for all these people who are moving up. So with a permanent people there, 10 of them, those who were acclimatized and being inducted to replace those who had done their stay there of 90 days. In those days, it used to be men had to be sort of relocated to a lower height after a stay on the glacier for 90 days.
Okay.
So certain people are going up, certain people are coming. So for the night stay, we had 5 camps, camp 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I had one patrol base, and then finally Siala. So it used to take almost a 1 week's time to reach up to my final target of about 70 kilometers of walk.
Right. Okay.
And the worst part was there are no landmarks to guide you. There used to be one single, signal line, and it used to be WD cable, a very thick, a very thin cable for maintaining our communication, which was on telephone only, and because radio search we were avoiding the use and all.
Right.
So it took me about 7 to I think 9 days, because en route I got buried in snow and I twisted my knee and it got swollen. So I take 2 days rest. But then rather than evacuating myself, I decided to go up despite this injury, which got set because of youth and all. It was okay.
I see. And you were carrying your own rations, your own ammunition.
Not
That is
ration.
okay.
Not ration. That is provision for.
Right.
That is provision for. We don't carry rations, but yes, our personal arms, ammunition, equipment, clothing, replacement. We have our own loads, so it works out to 8 to 10 kgs with your personal weapon, and we have on weapon scale of ammunition too that we carry and things like that.
In a trek like that, shoes would be very important, right? Like those heat shoes where the cold doesn't go in, or it doesn't get soaked in. It doesn't, yeah, right. It doesn't get watery. Were the shoes up to the mark, or was it still sort of chalta hai type?
You see, before this, as a young, recently commissioned officer, I was a company commander at the highest post in Nathula area, in Sikkim, 4752 meters. So I was a company commander there. And we were supplied with extreme cold climate clothing,
Hmm.
which we had snow boots, rubber boots, which
Okay.
are beyond, above the ankle, right up to the calf muscle, that you can say.
Okay.
And we tie putties, warm putties, so that the snow doesn't get inside, or spades we have.
Hmm.
When the Siachen thing happened, they imported snow boots, special boots.
Okay.
We were thick enough, and but they had their own problems, in the sense that the snow will get in, despite the spades, and the snow used to be 7 to 8 feet.
Right. It will
So
come. It will get in from somewhere or the other.
somehow or the other, and there's no tracks, and even in any case, with continuous snowing, the tracks get obliterated every now and then, so you
Right.
hardly have any landmark. In fact, I like to share that it was the first time in my life I realized how silence can be so scary.
Oh.
It was as if you were in a somewhere in a different world.
Right.
Silence can be scary, very, very scary. I realized when I was in Siachen for the first time. Though I've been exposed to mountains in Sikkim, I said, in the entire north and east Sikkim,
Hmm.
I was at the highest post, 47552 meters and all.
So the silence was scary because of not knowing what the tracks are, or the risk of getting lost, or was it
Uh,
the risk of an attack from an enemy?
you see, I'll take it one by one. Attack from the enemy was not possible
Hmm.
because Indian Army had settled and taken control in 84 April only.
Right.
So that thing was ruled out, number one. Number two, there were no tracks because the continuous snowing will not allow. This average snow level used to be 6 to 7 feet.
Right.
Third thing, there are no landmarks.
Right.
No trees are there. No any other artificially created infrastructure is there. It is just a snow tent. They are also, more than half buried in snow. You just see the pinnacle or the top. And then is a number of people at that time. Used to be handful. You could
Right.
hardly see. Only thing you could see somewhere is a crow, very oversized crow used to be there. Otherwise,
Mhm.
there was nothing. I was absolutely silent.
What
So,
what happens what happens in a scenario like, you mentioned that you go from one post to the other, and there's a 6 to 7 hours of walking distance between them, and there's no proper tracks, right? So, and there are not enough people. Like, every post has 10 people who are supposed to manage it. What happens in a scenario where your expedition team or your team that's going from post A to post B gets lost on the way? Is there a search party that goes there? Because I would imagine that there's not enough people, so to sort of get those people extracted, what happens in that case, and how often did that happen in your tenure?
you see, firstly about navigation, as I said, we were on line communication from the base camp to the Siala, and we put pickets and markers to assist the line party whenever the line get disrupted. So that was the accepted line of move.
Mhm.
That's a different thing that it'll get buried. And from one camp to another, there were some rescue drills. I agree with you. Say party of say about 20 start from camp 2 to 3.
Okay.
So the receiving camp number 2 will know there's a party of say 20 have taken off from camp 3 and heading for camp 2.
Okay.
So at reasonable time and space, we remain in touch. And should a emergency of this type happens, they have been happening, especially certain cases, some stragglers. Everybody is of not that physical strength, so certain people get left behind. So sometimes accidents have taken place with stragglers not catching up, not coping up, not able to reach.
Mm.
So in that case, we don't abandon anybody. We take care, and the camp commander or whoever is the senior most, he reports back. There's a complete system of taking care of each other.
Right. You work as a unit.
Yeah.
Makes sense. So we were at December of 1984.
Yeah.
You were on your way towards your new location.
Siala. That is a line where we had occupied the heights, and the pass Siala. La means pass.
Got it.
So my company headquarters with a platoon size or reduced platoon, about 20 odd men. That was my ultimate destination.
Okay. So you started off, and then you basically went through the same pathway from post 1 to post 2, and
Camp
oh,
1, Camp 2, Camp 3.
camp 1, camp 2, camp 3. Okay, and then you reached there in a few days. You twisted your knee, and you had to wait. But then you finally you reached Siala. What happens after that?
You see, for the first time in my life, I saw something, a frozen river. You see, Siachen had another challenge apart from very altitude and extreme climatical condition. And the crevices, you see, crevices, actually, Siachen is a frozen river kind of a thing, which sort of falls crust on top on which we walk.
Yep.
And at places, the crevices open up.
Ooh.
And with the soft snow on top, we don't realize there is a pit underneath, and a huge pit. And there have been accidents like people falling in the crevices, and hence we move with ropes tied with one another.
Oh, so you can sort of
it
you can get them out, you can pull them out.
And that too, moving in a zigzag manner, so that suppose the one man gets fallen into crevice, the whole party should not be pulled back. So that is the basic drills that we evolved for operating successfully in that area.
Okay.
The frozen river, that I suddenly, one of my boys walking ahead of me, he says, "Aap dekho, kaisa lagta hai?" My God, it was a unique scene underneath, the lay, the kind of a feeling that you get कि यार ये भी दुनिया है. It was very thrilling. We enjoy all these things because you see, we are mentally trained.
Right.
It's not it's actual thing that we enjoy also. It's not
right. It's sort of an amazing moment where you're going through this challenging task, but you also actually sort of stayed for a moment and just enjoy the beauty that's out there, and just enjoy where you are, because most people will not get an opportunity to be at a place like this. So just enjoy that, smell the flowers, as they say, and then go on your journey, as challenging as it is.
Army always talks of physical morale and mental morale.
Right.
You see, mentally we are so strong. We don't care that हमारे पास इक्विपमेंट नहीं है, खाना ठीक नहीं खाया है, मेरे को ये नहीं मिला है, मैं अकेला हूँ. These things are irrelevant things. And as a team, the bonami, the camaraderie that we have, one for all for one.
Right.
That is the ultimate thing, ultimate strength that we have.
Right.
And we don't fear anything. In fact, they're unique. And apart from that, you see, when shortage of manpower was there,
right.
So Indian Army, from within the command, they pulled in youngsters. I had, after 37 years of this time, I still remember Havildar Savran Singh of 3 Grenadiers, Naik Gurmeet Singh of 13 Sikhalai, Havildar Rampal of 14 Grenadiers. They were all volunteers pulled in. So we were a unique force.
Right.
who had gelled into a real weapon itself.
Wow.
So that is how we built up.
Right. So you reach Siala, and what's the
Mm.
first thing that you observe over there once you reach there?
You see, when I was en route, at places I found the snow pinkish.
Hmm.
So I was quite surprised. I said, "How come the pinkish color is there?" So I asked, the men, Ladakhi men, Jawan, we call Nunus. I said, Nunu, what is this pinkish कैसा? इसे साहब कई बार क्या है वहाँ जवानों को पेप्टिक अल्सर हो जाता है and vomiting. Some of them even had gone to the limit of vomiting blood.
Oh.
I said, yeah, this is extreme case. इसे साहब मैनपारिस को मतलब रिप्लेसमेंट होता नहीं है कई कई बार जो है इंजर्ड होने के बाद इंजर्ड और इट वाज नॉट physical injury, it was health wise.
Right.
Certain people they develop all kind. Peptic ulcer used to be a very common thing there. So when I reached there was hardly anything. We were one doctor, Captain MLB Butt, the finest doctor and a soldier that I met. And then I had only 15 or 20 of my men of Ladakh Scout, another from attachments like we have from AMC, nursing assistant. We have some signal boys.
Mhm.
And I had a detachment of light mortars from artillery.
Hmm.
So overall, they were about not more than say about myself as company commander, Captain MLV Butt, my RMO, regimental medical officer, he was from AMC,
Mhm.
and about 25 odd must be the strength total. And that is Ladakh Scouts, Signaler, AMC, and some other people, and gunners, artillery. So that is what my domain was for next about a month or so. I was sitting in a pass dominating by on one side Indra called 6,000 plus, and on other side there was a shoulder. You see, from here, from the pass, it goes into another glacier that is Kondus Glacier.
Mhm.
So Siala Pass is the dividing line, if I broadly, if you can say, where the Siachen ends and Kondus Glacier starts, which goes on to the Pakistan side.
Okay.
So dead on that line, my company headquarters, and we were located there. Must be spread around in an area of about 200 meters.
Okay.
And we had snow tents. Only 2 fiberglass huts had come. Indian Army had gotten fiberglass huts, which were comfortable, but they were not adequate in number.
Hmm.
So the majority of the party was still in tentage
Mhm.
with all its inadequacies.
Mhm.
Yes, we did have airdropped maintenance. So there's not really dearth of, food or other sustaining items, of which kerosene was the most important one.
Right. You would imagine. Right.
Uh,
So
so,
what?
yeah.
No, I was just wondering. So you reached there. Your objective was to hold the camp, and since it's the last camp before the Pakistani territory begins, and then there was some action that happened after that, or was that a few months later?
You see, when I reached there in end December, I took stock of situation. I understood the environment, my tasking,
Mhm.
which is what I have in case I had to go for combat. So I reviewed everything from the health of my men to the equipment, arms, equipment, communication
Mhm.
facilities, my artillery support. It was an extreme kind of a situation because after occupying Glacier in April 84, We had taken for granted that we are now in charge of, we are in control of occupied glacier once for all, and there will be no this thing. So I'll say it was a state of lowering the guards, or a victory celebrated too soon. If
Celebration
I
too soon. Yep.
and we were in a different mode. So when I started reporting, I said, this can be the situation, and this is what I have to face it. So the response or the replacement was not what it should have been. In fact, it is the first time that we were forced to get into operation without artillery support or the required artillery support. It never happens in the history of Indian Army. It did happen in First World War when organized artillery support was not there and the manpower loss was huge. So, because of climatical and other peculiarities of glacier, the equipping was not what it should have been. Basically, probably the higher ups thought, well, it is taken for granted and is not required in such emergency.
Okay.
How it came is, you see, as a man on ground, experienced in mountain warfare, I had a hunch there is something amiss. But I had nothing to see on the other side of the hill.
You had a hunch, but you did not have a way to validate it.
Yeah, exactly. So, but I did kept on reporting. Look, we verify from your sources, because you see the battle indication or the preparation indication, they are visible, like the air traffic, movement of men with loads, going back without loads, general level of movement of men and equipment that takes place. These are some of the indication that that something is getting happening on the other side.
And our military intelligence would be the one that would be responsible for sort of detecting that and looking at those key indicators and sort of making an
No, you
assessment.
see, military intelligence and this thing in those times, at that ground level, these things are not there. In fact, it happens that we verify and tell them, because we are the people on ground. It is the people on ground who say this is seen here. Now, how it gets collated and interpreted is, yes, the responsibility of higher headquarters, and they do their job.
Right.
But then it again primarily depends on the inputs that we give. And I was giving all those inputs, but somehow they didn't get taken with the right kind of seriousness. And suddenly, on 19th February, after waiting for about 10 days of bad weather, a helicopter came. You see, there are two types of maintenance that we were having that time. One is airdropping of logistics, food, equipment, even ammunition or whatever is a requirement. Another used to be recce and surveillance by the light helicopters. And they were regularly visiting us depending on the condition of weather.
Right.
So it used to happen that even for casualty evacuation, the helicopter will not be able to come because of bad weather. It happened when I reached Siala. One of my JCO was sick for almost 6 days. And because of bad weather, he could not be evacuated. And he was one such who was vomiting blood. So even this kind of casualties, they cannot be, because you can't manually move them. You see, moving them manually in this kind of environment for 7 days walk, 6 to 7 days,
Right.
will not work.
Yeah.
So when this helicopter came, I requested the pilot if he could fly over the height, immediately dominating, because I was sitting in the pass.
Right.
So he flew over the area that I had said, and he came back to me rather than going back to the base. He says, sir, a concentration of about 500 men of the
Oh,
enemy and a whole regiment of heavy mortars, 120 mortars.
ooh.
And I said, yeah, this is what I've been apprehending all the time. Please go back to the headquarters and tell the commander.
So
Uh,
you had
yeah.
been, so you had a hunch that something is being concentrated on the other side, which you can't see from your end. You just had a hunch, and you had been relaying some messages that something may be happening. It gets validated by that chopper that goes in and says it's around 500 people with artillery support that's ready to pounce, and you are just 25 people on the Siala Pass.
It's not ready to pounce in the sense that they had already started walking up, and they were within a distance of about 500 meters short of the top saddle area from where I was a sitting duck for them.
Oh, so this was a dominating area to your place. So if they captured that high top, you
Then,
you
and
will
that
be
has
at a very vulnerable position.
100%,
Oh,
100%. In fact, that's what happened. So when they saw that their location has been revealed, and they started firing. And because they were already on near the peak of saddle area, which I ultimately had to go and capture. So it was they opened fire, and I was in tentage. I was a sitting duck. I could do nothing. I couldn't even protect myself.
so you would think that when the chopper flew over their positions, they would have seen the chopper, and that's what made them realize that their position has been revealed, and now it's all open. Oh,
Exactly. They realized that the surprise has been lost.
oh my God! And the initial party, how many men, according to your estimation, reached the top of the saddle from the Pakistan side? Or was it like a bigger force, or just trying to understand that?
You see, if you take this feature of 5966, which is intervening feature between me and them,
Hmm.
their location is invisible. And of course, the climb from their side also, as it is from my side. My side is much more steeper
Hmm.
because the general lie of the ground is favorable to the Pakistan side.
Okay.
The tree line from the Skardu side is much nearer to ours. Ours finished. There's hardly any tree line in the Nubra Valley itself. So it not even the whole area is denuded of much of trees. This valley.
Mm.
They had already started climbing. So we're taking a regiment of artillery is deployed. With all the tubes ready to fire and all. And about 50 odd percent are still at the base, and certain parties are in different level of climb.
I
So
see.
one party of with a heavy machine gun HMGs,
Hmm.
they were almost at the top when their position was revealed on 19th of February.
Okay. And how far was this from your location? If you could talk, like from a bird's view, or
Yeah,
what's that statement?
bird's eye
Bird's
view.
eye view. Okay. So how much distance would that be?
There's hardly anything because the HMG fire was coming directly on me. The bullets falling all over me, my
And,
location, and I was in a tent.
yeah. And how would you take cover in a scenario like that? Because all you had was that.
Nothing,
Oh,
because there's no cover. Where to take
right.
cover? Under what you take cover?
Oh my
You're
God.
absolutely out in the open. If
Oh
the
my
bullet
God.
doesn't hit you, it's your good luck.
Okay. So what was
And
your objective at that? Oh, sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
uh, so the helicopter pilot went back to the headquarters.
Yeah.
He told the commander the situation is like this. So he got, he didn't know what to say. He
Mm.
says, you get me in the chopper and take me there. So it's another 1 hour flying time. So he straight away came after 1 hour.
Okay.
But what could he tell me? So he says, I want you to capture this hill feature.
Okay. So I have a question here. So
Yeah.
what was the reason for him to fly in? Because that would also put the chopper as well as him in harm's way, right? Because if you have direct fire coming at you at that time and there's no cover, so as to say,
So
why couldn't he relay that message over the phone or something like that? Was there a specific reason for that?
it doesn't happen that way in army.
Okay.
It doesn't happen because if the commander has been made aware that so and so situation is there, it is bound. He's bound to respond in this manner that he did. So
Okay.
he came. He saw the situation, but it was a helpless situation because any replacement would not come to me before 7 days.
Yeah.
Because if you bring a man by helicopter or drop him there, the enemy doesn't have to shoot him. He will die overnight because of hypo. You see, when the lungs get filled with water,
Mm.
and it is a very bad death. So he had nothing to give me except an order that I will capture the height tonight. I said, I'll try my best, but you know the situation. I have reported everything.
So
Anyway,
at
yeah.
the end of the day, you had the 25 men, including you, and there was no opportunity for reinforcements coming in for the next 7 days. So it was just you who had to capture that saddle, the saddle height. If you wouldn't do that, the post would be in a very vulnerable place, and it could be taken over by the enemy. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, there are two things to it. Firstly, the emergency.
Mm.
If the adversary succeeds in capturing that height, he just had to roll down and come right up to the base camp unopposed.
Oh.
Number one. Number two, that was the time that Siachen could have been lost. Hence, the extreme situation is that a Major Mehar Singh Dahiya with 11 years of service, nobody senior to him, with no communication, with no artillery support, with no adequate provisioning and clothing, he had to decide. Because I told this to my commander. I said, I can't even run away from here. I know I have to die here.
Wow.
This is the exact word that I told him when he said, you capture this way. I said, I'll try my best. Rest, it is God Almighty. So when the firing was, bullets were falling all around, I started packing up my loads.
What
After,
was sorry, I just wanted to stay at that moment where
yeah,
you've been given those orders. It seems like an extremely challenging task, and you said, yeah, uh, I'll try my best or I'll die here. What was going in your mind, like, apart from the objective? Was there any other thought that came into your mind about your safety, your men's safety, of your family back home? A lot of those thoughts would come to your mind, right? Because this decision would have huge impact on various things.
see, it's a very touchy question. Uh, you see, two things. In fact, I faced this situation live when I actually started working for capture of this post. Before that, moment the enemy location was revealed, the commander had gone because the flying was at an extreme level. So chopper doesn't wait for more than 5 minutes or 7 minutes. This is just about 5-7 minutes that he spent with me because the fuel will get consumed and then he'll get stuck up and things like that. So moment he took off, I was all by myself, Major with 11 years of service, the peak of his youth, at the most challenging, where the geographical lines, the borders will get altered.
Right.
There's nothing holding the adversary from occupying the Nubra Valley, and with grave consequences for the country.
Right.
So that was the stakes. What I had, out of 23 men that I had, I handpicked 15 because there was nobody else.
Right.
And I explained to my doctor, I salute Captain MLB Butt, who was a medical officer with me, extremely fine soldier apart from a good doctor. I explained to him how tactical fight should be taken place with this handful of men that you have. And he rose to the occasion. He says, "Sir, you don't worry. I will not let down this thing fall into enemy's hand, because if my location falls into enemy's hand, then I am also cut off from behind as well as front."
Right.
So I salute him. I always remember that man rising to the occasion, despite he not being from a combat typical combat background.
Right.
At 6:20 in the evening, after packing our loads, we didn't take any food or anything. In our sleeping bags, we filled up with ammunition and with our clothing on and everything. At 6:20, I started. 15 of us tied with ropes, because that area is usually, a lot of crevices are there. And we started when the fire was still coming on to us, because he could pick and take a pot shot. Slowly, it started, the visibility got affected. I generally knew the direction because no landmarks. You'll
Right.
be surprised. I didn't even have the proper map.
Right.
That was a level of preparation. So it was general line of direction, general sense of direction. After walking for about 5 hours, the body inside, the sweat was there. I decided to take a break for about 10 minutes. And after these 10 minutes, it was difficult to get up
Mm.
because the sweat that has set in had frozen in ice. There was a line of icy touch inside the body.
Oof.
And that is the time I faced the most crucial question of my life. What will you do? I said, either you die a death of a coward, moment it is sunlight and the visibility is better, and he takes a pot shot, or just get up and move. I was not very clear about the objective per se. It was just a general line of direction. That question that you asked me, what made you do it? I dedicated to two things. Firstly, I said, if you die a coward's death with a bullet on your back, your people back home in the village will refuse to cremate you as a coward. That was one thing. And that is where our farmer soldier heritage of my village comes in and stood beside me. Don't worry, son, I'm with you. Second thing, a question that I replied to myself. Look, friend, you have been eating government ration for 10 years during training, and 11 years that the
Right.
army is sustaining you. So 21 years of ration that you have consumed, and the pay that you have taken, here is the time to pay back.
Right.
And I straightway said, let's get up and get moving. I like to add another point in it.
Yeah.
You see, an officer, while making a decision, is all alone.
Mm.
And more than his own life, he is answerable to the life of his men. I'll mention two things here.
Right.
One, you see, when I was in absolutely wilderness, on the mountain top, and you see, this hallucination or whatever you call it, I saw the shape of Buddha. And my troops were Buddhists.
Mm.
Of course, my Subedar was a Shia Muslim from Kargil. So he was the next to me. So I said, Subedar Sahab, मेरे को बुद्धा का शकल वहां पे उस पे दिखाई देता. My men were jubilant. He says, nothing can defeat us. And we started moving. We walked another 7 hours about 6 hours. And the snow was 8 to 10 feet.
Mm.
A stage came where we were not able to move at all. I said, let's shed all our equipment, all other anything else, and just take ammunition and your weapon. Leave it here. Should we be still remain alive, we'll come back and collect it. But literally crawling on our elbows, knees, taking this ammunition and this thing. Somehow at 5 o'clock in the morning, when the sun was rising,
Mm.
I reached the top. And this top was barely 250 meters away from when enemy was already there with his heavy machine gun, which was firing at me previous evening.
Wow. So they were still there or didn't see you
This,
coming?
no, they didn't. Somehow, I approached that top in such a manner, not realizing that they are already on top, to be very frank.
Mm-hmm.
But I reached, it's a destiny. It
Right.
took me barely 250 meters, but at a higher, it is like a knuckle. You see, they were slightly lower, and I was just on top of them.
Oh, so you were able to just as a matter of luck that the direction that you came in from put you at a higher level as compared to
Yeah,
them, and then put
exactly.
you at a
Advantage,
advantageous
advantage.
position.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow. So you were there,
Now,
and go ahead. Sorry.
yeah. So now, when to open fire? My light machine gun commander says, "Shall I open fire straight away?" I said, "No. We are still unknown to the enemy.
Hmm.
So let's cut some ice, get to some trench kind of a thing where we can sit down and take aim.
Hmm.
It's not just like that." For about next 1 hour, we were slowly, silently cutting ice, removing snow, making some pit. Because at that place, even the snow blizzard was 120 kilometers an hour.
Hmm.
Temperature, as I said, 50 to 60 minus degrees. We are without food. And no artillery support. And
But
it is,
that's
yeah.
that's a question over here. Now, since your hypothesis, your hunch was validated, and the commander was like, "All right, go in. Your objective is to capture that saddle." Still, there was no artillery support, because now everything was validated, right?
You see, we had a small detachment of artillery, but they were ineffective. Firstly, because you see, to be effectively firing, you're supposed to be doing ranging. That depends on your map, map, which I didn't have. In
Okay.
fact, after 2 days of my reaching, a second lieutenant Bist, the youngsters from straight from the academy, he joined me as my artillery OP.
Oh.
So I give some reference to him. You fire a round. He says, "Sir, it is not there on the map." I said, "Don't worry,
Just
I'm
fire it.
qualified. Just fire it, and then I'll give you the correction." So what
Right.
happens is that you fire one round, and it takes 2 hours to dig out the tube because
Oh,
the ground is not firm. It is
right.
all snow. So it get, with the counter force, the tube goes inside the
It goes inside.
snow. You,
Right.
you have to either create any the base plate, remove the base plate, put it in the place. You give some firm footing. If it
Um,
doesn't happen, it doesn't fire. Even if it fires, it is of no use.
wow. All right. So you did not have artillery support, but you reached the saddle at an advantageous position. You took an hour. You took your time to sort of create those pits so that you could have a way to defend a better defended position, and you could take aim at the enemy.
See, there is another aspect to it. You see, there we had one grad P single barrel Grad P. It is a artillery equipment which fires one round. We could carry because that weighs 32 pounds. So with what difficulty we literally dragging it on snow. We took it there. So when I asked the NCO in charge, I said, now you're set, now you take the aim at the camp. The biggest tragedy of that moment was, he says, I don't know how to fire. I said, yeah, how can it happen? He says, साहब वो मैन पावर का शॉर्टेज है और मैं तो आई एम सो एंड सो बाय ट्रेड आई वाज सेंट इन रिप्लेसमेंट की भी 3 महीने पूरे करके वापस आ जाना.
Oh,
That was the biggest, at that moment you can't tell your man. I said, yeah, this is treacherous. Anyway,
right.
I've been an instructor in weapons. I had carried 6 mortars of 84 rocket launcher. So one of the role that we fire that is in airburst role. I had only 6 rounds and no replacement was expected. So the Jawan who is supposed to be actual holding that equipment, I said, no, I'll fire it myself. Because I can't afford to lose 1 round if you take a wrong aim, if you don't fire for effect.
Right.
I said, don't worry, I've been instructor, I've been teaching Army, Navy, Air Force, officers, Jawan, everybody in infantry school. So in that combat is the first round that I fired myself was of 84 rocket. HE.
So that's the RCL gun that you have it on
Yes,
your shoulder and then you fire it?
it's not RCL gun, it's a rocket launcher. It's smaller than that shouldered fired RCL gun, which used to be 57
Okay.
It is a shorter version, working on almost on the same principle.
Okay.
So I fired that round for the first time, and thereafter, they also were shocked to see fire coming from top of them. They could never imagine that somebody could reach here and counter and blunt their entire movement. You see, because the adversary had put in the best foot forward.
Right.
There was SSG troops were there. NLI troops were the best troops from their side.
NLI is Northern Light Infantry and
Northern
SSG is
Light
Special
Infantry,
Service Group.
like locals from that area, Scarborough area. Like we have locals from Leh area and formed this regiment of Ladakh Scouts. Very brilliant, outstanding soldiers, the best snow warriors.
Yeah, right. And I think they are the same folks who were there in the Kargil War as well. The folks
Exactly,
from Northern Light.
exactly.
Right.
So there it was. Now the real battle starts. A real battle starts. I am without any communication with my headquarters. There is nothing that my headquarters can do for me. Because anything, I told my commander, I said, sir, don't promise. He says, tomorrow I'll put the whole Indian army behind me. I said, sir, don't promise me this. I know you will go back trying to find troops. Even if you manage some, the equipment is not there. So I know before 7 days, nobody can come.
Okay.
There are no direction from you because I am not in communication with you. Even if you tell me something, it is of no consequence because the required logistic support, equipment, ammunition is not there. So it is all by myself that I have to perform and excel because it is a national challenge.
Right.
In fact, I'm proud to say that in my investiture ceremony, most outstanding generals of Indian Army, Lieutenant General M.L. Chibber, he was another Army commander, and General A.K. Handu, he took over from General Chibber when he retired. Both of them were there in the investiture ceremony by Prime Minister during my investiture. And General Chibber, he came searching for me. Locating me, he took me by the hand and he took me to General Handu. He says, Ashok, his first name was Ashok. Ashok, meet the boy who saved Siachen for the country that day.
Wow.
It was the biggest challenge that I faced, and the compliments I am getting from these two most outstanding generals of the Indian Army. Another thing that on the second and third day,
So
see
wait,
the whole, yeah,
wanted to sort of stay on the first day. So you
yeah,
fired the first
um,
gun, the rocket launcher.
yeah.
The enemy was shocked to
Hmm.
see that that you were able to capture a height that is at a higher altitude than
Hmm.
them. What was their reaction? Did they fire back?
You see, from their position, since I was a little higher than their location, the small arms fire, that is rifles, light machine gun, heavy machine gun, which was not very effective on me. They were
Hmm.
firing all over, and now the heavy mortars opened up.
Okay.
And the heavy mortars, they pounced me for 6 days continuously. Moment there is a bit of visibility, the round artillery fire will come. And it'll come in huge strength, literally pestering the whole area.
And
But
during all this time, the Pakistani troops, they were still there 250 meters away from you.
you see, the visibility is a challenge. Moment there was a visibility, they used to be attacked from their side,
Okay.
pouncing grenades on me and crawling right up to my location. Since I was at a little higher place, my fire was more effective on them.
Right.
And like me, they were also at the challenge of manpower. So it's a very limited number of people are there. So this it is a desperate fight from both sides. Absolutely, like paupers. There's nothing available from their side in terms of replacement. And my mera to it is totally ruled out.
Yeah, but they were still at a position of advantage, right? Because they had a whole regiment there at their base, and half of them
Exactly,
were already there. So they had
exactly,
more troops in surplus to replace as compared to
exactly.
you, where you had
Yes, I had nothing. I
no
had absolutely
reinforcements.
nothing. It is nothing. So on the second, when the fight was going on, second day, a message was relayed to me, where the co-commander himself, Lieutenant P.N. Hoon, uh, he had uh, he had dictated his order directly addressed to Major MS Dahiya, and I got this copy with me of that. I call it the ultimate order.
Wow.
It is written in Tibetan and Roman. It was read out to me, and he says, this is from Lieutenant P.N. Hoon, Co-Commander 15 Corps, to Major MS Dahiya, Delta Company Commander. You've done a wonderful job. I'm proud of you. The enemy morale is falling. And lastly, he says that under no circumstances you will fall back. Take this order is you will fight from here, last man, last round.
Hmm.
So in the history of Indian Army, such kind of direct executive orders from the highest authority in the area are very rare to give because the situation was so extreme. It was a national issue.
Hmm.
It was not played up at that level. It's a different thing. It is the higher ups who are they know these things better than me.
Right.
But then at ground level, it was extreme.
Hmm.
So we continued there for 6 days, and during these 6 days, not a morsel was eaten by us. We never slept.
Wow.
We because fear in itself is a such a thing that it makes you forget everything. No sleep, no food. At about 19,000 feet of height, minus 60-degree temperature out in the open, 120 kilometers of snow blizzard. It is so severe that if you expose what happened is in excitement when my RTOP, Second Lieutenant Dinesh Bis joined me, you see the handset pressure switch was not, he just removed his hand glove, and pressed the thing. In half an hour, his index finger was shortened by about half an inch. The whole thing
Wow.
shrank. And he was just a child. He says, "Sir, ye kya ho gaya mujhe?" And somehow, those times, everybody is strong enough. My Subeda Saab getting jittery. He tell me, "Sir, I got small children." I said, "Don't worry. I can assure you one thing, that I'll not leave your dead body here if I'm alive. You can rest. You can be at one place." I was the one who was moving up and down, because my 15 men were at three different places,
Yeah.
because place where I was sitting was barely 35 meters in width.
Mm.
And that was a saving grace, because the minimum range correction in artillery is 50 meters. So the rounds were falling on either side of me. So there must have been hundreds of shells that have fallen, but by God's grace, none landed at my position. It was as if Buddha himself was protecting us.
Yeah, seems like it's 6 days without food. I mean, dark thoughts must be coming through your mind and your men, and then you have to keep their morale up. What you must have had a lot of difficult conversations with your men. Um, how did that? How did you? Was there a moment where you felt that this is it? I don't think we'll make it.
Never. You see why? Because firstly, I said fear in human psyche is a factor which
Mm.
replaces, it undermines, it dilutes all other aspects of your physical existence. Number one. Second thing is that since my men were located at three different places, I was continuously moving up and down, motivating them. And I told him only one thing: look, I can't guarantee that we will survive here. But if we fall into their hands, the end will be much more worse that you can even imagine.
Right.
So come what may, we'll fight to the, we will go down fighting. In any case, you see, the military life itself, during our training, our regimental spirit, you see, it has taken hundreds of years. If I take it in the immediate history, I say from 20th century,
Right.
our founders have taken very deliberate effort to groom, to bring in that spirit where our regiment name, the flag, is the ultimate thing. There's
Right.
nothing beyond it. Our personal safety comes second and lower than our own men. I'm answerable to my men.
Right.
I cannot, I told my Subhada Sahib, I said, I will, if I am alive, I will not leave your dead body here. If I
Mm.
am also gone, so अगले जन्म में मिलेंगे. लेकिन I will not let you down. In fact, I like to narrate an incident here.
Yeah.
You see, all 15 of us were frostbitten. Frostbitten so bad that there were 9 amputation cases.
Wow.
And the worst amputation case was of Holda Rampal of village Loha Khanakhurd, Tehsil Shahpur, district Jaipur. He was from 14 Grenadiers. After 37 years, I remember his particulars. His both the legs were amputated. One, a complete toe was removed, and another just below the knee. Uh, I took my I took my family to meet him when he was shifted to Army Hospital, where the final operation was was done. And I happened to tell my son, who was just about 10 years or so, about 8 years. I said, I'm alive today because of these men. I was surprised. Rampal lying with both legs amputated. He smiles. He says, no, beta, we are alive because of your father.
Wow.
Because we were at one place and he was continuously moving up and down, motivating us, pushing us, and making sure that nothing happens to us. See, that is the strength of Indian Army.
Yeah.
These things are unique, and I'm proud that we our people still uphold, because this is the ultimate strength that we have.
Wow. So 6 days you were there, and on the seventh day, what happened? Like, how did this battle end in the end?
You see, when it was extreme, I don't say that my higher-ups were not worried. And slowly, slowly, they started pulling in people who could replace us. So we were replaced. And despite all these injuries, we had to walk back and change door during bad hours of visibility where the enemy could not interfere and things like that.
Hmm.
And we walked back with a replacement. Uh, just somehow they were pulled in, and they were also launched as a different, because my own company 2IC, Major A.K. Chandok, he went into the second wave. To him, what happened is a different story, because in those areas nothing is certain and
Right.
nothing can really be planned and things like that. So we came back despite being in my own location, which I had left behind. For next 2 days, nothing that I've forgotten the taste of food. So we were thereafter airlifted, taken to GH Leh, and for next 48 hours we were continuously in IV
Yeah.
fluid.
Right.
The body had reduced. I had lost 35 kg weight in 6 days.
Oh my God.
I was barely a skeleton when I was airlifted and brought back. Nobody could recognize that I am same Major Mehar Singh Dahiya. But then again, my will is moving. The food, the care that had taken place in the environment in the village, which has trained us, my training academies, my Sainik School, National Defense Academy. You see, all these institutions and individuals, they train us for this to resolve.
Right.
And we sustained, and after 1 month of putting in oxygen chamber in GH Leh, then we were shifted to command hospital for more treatment, more rest. As I said, it took almost 1 year to recoup.
Um,
That is how it happened.
so I just wanted to close the loop on the battle. So the second wave of reinforcements came in, and then probably more reinforcements came into the Battle of Saddle. Oh, so what happened eventually? So that just the enemy just lost. They just figured that they could not make it, or they just lost interest in it, or they just were overpowered.
You see, by taking control of a higher place, when my party was replaced with another party, they were also airlifted.
Hmm.
And since they were already part of my company, they were acclimatized and able to, but they were dropped at one place to hold the same location. But they too had to fall back, and my company 2IC, second in command, Captain A.K. Chandu, he lost his toe. Thereafter he left army. He's a successful businessman today in Chennai. We are still in touch. We talk about those days, and
Nice.
that is how. And thereafter, once this initiative was blunted, then the Pakis, they couldn't sustain the
Yeah.
similar kind of a attempt, successful or otherwise, also did take place in Belafonda, and that's a different story.
Okay. Wow. So it was a battle of resilience, basically, that you had to just stay there and just not give up. And even till the, like, putting yourself to the brink and just not give up at the end. And that's how the man who saved Siachen, that's how it happened.
Yes, exactly.
That's just such an amazing story. How did this? I'm just curious. How did this whole incident change your perspective on life? It would have had a huge impact on your thought process, and a lot of things would seem trivial after going through such an experience, I would imagine.
You see, one or two things I was performing so far, I'll say extremely well in my career. And in my mandatory chance for staff college, it was my life went in a different manner. My
Mhm.
family, my son was 7 years old. My daughter was barely, I think, 6 months or 1 year. Leaving the wife in wilderness without any support. And that aspect, and in that time, the communication system was not what it is today.
Right,
Letter would come to you in a month, uh, maybe even more than that.
right,
Then it is co-running with your personal and professional life. I'll say 84, 85 was a turning point in my career. I become, with this experience, of course, I remain motivated, and I consider very lucky to have been got this chance.
right.
It is my destiny that I served in all such type of areas obtaining on our borders. More than one time in Sikkim, a similar kind of a battlefield on North Sikkim, Gayagong Plateau.
Mhm.
After this, I got posted. I volunteered to go back to my unit, and my unit happened to be in Gayagong platoon. Another quad 555, 5566 meters. They were the post picket that we were occupying.
Uh-huh.
And even I commanded my battalion in UP Tibet border. Again, a very challenging area, mountainous areas.
Right,
So, as far as my perspective, it never changed because I'm a die-hard soldier, a man on from the ground,
right,
and there's a lot of family and heritage pride attached to it. Other things are subsequent and inconsequential when compared with my duty. So
right.
that has kept me motivated even today.
Mm.
And I have no regrets that my career graph changed post this. I'm too proud. I'm quite happy.
Sense. And you were awarded the Shaurya Chakra for your bravery during the Battle of Saddle, and that's the picture behind you with the
Yeah,
President of
yeah,
India, Daniel Jail
yeah,
Singh.
yeah.
Tell us
Yeah.
about that moment. How was that? It must be a
You,
surreal moment, just being.
you see, on second or third day when this fight was going on, I got a message that forward some names for gallantry. I said, it is too embarrassing for me.
Mm.
I leave it to you how you judge the whole incident. And when I was in hospital after about a month or so, there was a small report in one of the newspapers which somebody said, "Hey, friend, your name is there in this was awarded." But one thing is there, you see, we have not been very clear on this aspect. Whenever I read that citation, it says enemy bravery not in the face of enemy,
Mm.
because the series of awards, Paramveer Chakra, Mahavir Chakra, Veer Chakra, Vijay Vij, Ashok Chakra, Kirti Chakra, and Shaurya Chakra. You see, despite facing two enemies, the awards are from a different series, but recognition is recognition.
Right,
I thank my Indian Army for at least acknowledging what, not me, what my men did.
right,
It is my good luck that I was leading such brave snow warriors, that is Nunus of Ladakh Scouts. They're the best. They're the best. And equally good were those who came as volunteers. I
Wow.
named them. One from Grenadiers, Holdar Rampal, Naik Gurmeet of 13th Sikhalai, and Holdar Sohan Singh of 3 Grenadiers. They were different regiment, but that bonding was too good. We were all gelled into a very good team. So
Are
that is the
you
strength. That is the strength.
are you still in touch with them? Do you guys meet often on February
Uh,
19th? Actually, it's quite close to the actual
yeah.
actual day.
It is
Today is
tomorrow.
February 18th. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
it is tomorrow.
Though my award was announced on 21st February,
Okay.
but date of operation happens to be the date of award.
Mhm.
So that since it is spread from 19 to 25th or so, so the whole thing, and 21st February it is happens to be my grandson's day, birthday. So I
Mm,
I correlated with it. This thing, it is all in the
very,
family line.
very nice. This was such an amazing journey, such an amazing experience that you've gone through, and I think most people would just succumb under the extreme challenges. But then I think it's the ethos of the Indian Army that you talked about. It sort of makes someone more elevated than a regular person, and I think that was sort of, we see that in this specific experience of yours. So it's such an amazing thing. Um, you also wanted to talk about mountain warfare, general tactics, and everything. Is that something that we can touch upon a little bit?
You see, to be operating in mountains by itself is a unique experience.
Right.
Mountains, they say, there is a saying that you always respect your age and respect the mountains.
Right.
Mountains and with the extreme weather, climatical condition like you are obtaining in UP Tibet border or in Sikkim or in Siachen, Ladakh, and all that you come across. Uh, our mental health is equally important
Right.
than the physical health. And for that, the Indian Army, our organization, our company level organization, battalion level care and concern
Hmm.
for all, these are our strength. They keep you motivated. One of the factors which bothers is a sense of isolation.
Right.
See, when you are terrain wise, you are cut off from certain things, and that apprehension remains. That so, if so and so thing happens, then how do I deal with it, and what are the things that are available to me? So, in that disconnect or the remoteness has an impact while operating in mountainous and snow high altitude areas.
Right.
Another thing is your health, physical health. You see, when we were all brought to GH Leh, a team of scientists was flown from Delhi of DPAS. There is an organization
Hmm.
which researches on physiological conduct of humans. And a team was flown to research on us as to how did we survive. And those scientists, sitting beside my bed, they used to ask me all kind of questions. What did you feel? How did you keep yourself emotionally settled? How much was the energy level? And what were the thoughts coming? And they researched on everything. And this study became a guiding um, light or guiding parameters for subsequently posted men on Siachen Glacier.
Oh,
Yeah,
you were the test case.
yeah,
Unfortunately,
yeah,
you
I can.
actually had. It's like the,
I'm
yeah.
I'm privileged to have been that test case.
Oh
And
wow.
that study, they say it is there. I said, fine, yeah, if I'm of my feedback has been of use, so it is an honor.
That's great.
Uh, Another thing that now, of course, are the level of leadership. You see, our leadership is unique. Our young leaders, you see, I told you in the beginning that my aim is to share with you the perspective of a company commander, the groundsman. He forgets everything else. He gels into the team so well that for him is life and death.
Right.
So certain other things that you see in other part of life, they become irrelevant. He lives and dies for the men he commands. And he gels not as an officer and men, but leader and the led. They can be of any rank.
Right.
रैंक इज ठीक है, वो अपनी जगह है, लेकिन when we get down on ground as a combat team, we are member of that combat team, defending each other and caring for each other. Especially, it is more incumbent on an officer to provide that very competent leadership to his men. And I'm proud I did that. That is the ultimate satisfaction that I got from my military career.
सर आपकी स्टोरी पे तो में तो एक मूवी बननी चाहिए. I'm like, honestly speaking, this is इस पे तो I'm surprised that a lot of people don't know about this, which is kind of, I think that's the whole point of this podcast, is a lot of these stories have to come out, and I'm so happy that you took out the time for this. Before we go, is there anything else you wanted to add to the overall experience or overall topics that you touched upon?
You see, it is for military career per se. One of the aspects in which the military man, very modest in his outlook,
Right.
is he fails in his self-projection. If we don't, if I leave that term self-projection, at least we must tell as to who we are,
Right.
what we are doing, and why are we here, and how come, in what way we are absolutely need, which cannot be compromised. Second thing that I want to say to the youth
Right.
is services is the best career. Why? Not for any other thing. It's not for perks, privileges, or whatever. It is secondary. The accomplishment it gives,
Right.
being in command of, being constructively involved in that role, where a human human aspects are so evident, and how they gel into one. I'll not be very wrong if I call it a weapon.
Hmm.
You see, when you wield a sword or a rifle or something, it should naturally gel into other part of your body. So that is how the team gets evolved, and it's very enjoyable. It's very rewarding, and more than other other manners.
Right.
So
And just to add to that, I would say that the opportunities that you get in the services and the kind of impact that you are able to create being in those, like the experience you had, I don't think a lot of other professions would be able to provide that to a person. So that would
I agree.
be
We see each profession has its own peculiarities, its own plus and minus points. I'm just saying it provides certain things which are really very satisfying if you are clear as to what you want and what
right.
you take pride in.
What specific advice would you have for folks? A lot of the issues that we face in these days are with respect to mental health, anxiety, I would. Is there any advice that you have for folks who are, who are dealing with that, and how to increase their mental strength? Because a person like you who has gone through such an experience would be sort of better equipped to handle situations like that.
You see, when I went there in December 84, uh, Indian Army, as I said, they're having celebrated the victory prematurely,
Right.
were in a different mode. So, to build up, I'll quote an example. One day, Commander Artillery was, I was informed that Commander Artillery will be coming to see, uh, visualize how artillery support should be provided, because the whole thing was building up.
Right.
Because by the time we completed, the winters had set in. And during winters, they said nothing moves there. But they did move.
Right.
They did move, contrary to the general perception that nothing moves during winters. I told in December 84 only that things will move during winters. Nobody took me seriously. It was a different story.
Right.
So, as I said, the weather gets cleared in 5 minutes. It gets closed in 1 minute. So suddenly I saw a chopper. He says, a helicopter aa gaya." So he landed. Before I could get out of my shelter to receive him, I was putting on just a bare shirt and a slip-ons. And that too shirt, the sleeves were rolled up. And he was putting on all kind of special equipment and all the clothing and all. He said, I still remember Brigadier Turi asked me this question. He said, "Son, aren't you feeling cold?" I said, "No." He said, what kind of a chap you are? I said, "Sir, I'm fully acclimatized." He says, "You're just in a shirt here and socks pehna hai and slip on you, then just come to receive me." I said, "That's the way it happened." So we get used to these things. And that is another thing is schedule. Irrespective of this climatical condition and temperature, everyone who is there has to be out for PT at 6 o'clock in the morning.
Training.
Yeah. Physical training, we have our PT, we call. The parade has to be there. Everyone has to exercise. Everyone gets, get to see each other. Ye sab theek thaak hai. And as a commander, you can make out if something untoward likely to happen or somebody giving some different vibes. So that is how we keep motivated. We have all the fun. Drinks, I don't drink. I don't smoke. So that was not part of it. In any case, people are too scared. They were too scared to consume liquor. So that aspect was not there. Food was this thing, but the appetite was lost. You could hardly force yourself.
Right. Great. In the end, I'd like to ask you, how was your experience in this podcast? If you would like to share that with me.
It is very inviting. You see, when you communicate, there is a positive vibe between the initiator and the receiver.
Yeah.
It depends on the initiator how comfortable he is able to make his receiver and vice versa, because the role changing takes place. Initiator becomes a receiver, a receiver becomes initiator.
Right.
So the team, I enjoy talking to you in the sense that you make the person so relaxed, and the questioning, your intervention in whatever the other party is saying is very, very comfortable and very encouraging, in fact. So that is the way it should be taken.
Well, I'm glad that you had a good time on this podcast, and then sir, I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was just having you walk through just your journey, just the amazing experience that you had, and then the bravery you and your men showed. Just knowing about it, I think was an amazing experience for me. I just wanted to ask you to just do one last thing. If you could just say to the camera, say to the folks to subscribe to the Indian Military History channel. And
Certainly, I'll do that. I'll definitely share in my group.
no,
Uh,
also right on the video, I will clip it.
yeah. Certainly will do that.
All right. Great, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for taking out the time. It was truly an honor to have you on this show, and just thank you so much.
My honor, Vikram, and I wish you all the good luck. And you're doing a wonderful job, because the number of stories that are lying buried
Right.
are unimaginable. There are
Right.
so many things, and you see, it's not only from a military angle. You see, post-retirement, I have been active as a social scientist, I call myself. My intervention is right from animal welfare to universities in Haryana. I did a project on capability enabling and youth empowerment in one of the state universities in Haryana. That's my way of paying back to society. I keep visiting as a guest speaker to schools, colleges, universities, and vagara vagara. So that's a way. That is what army has taught me.
Right.
And that's what they spent crores of rupees in grooming me. So I'm just paying back for the next generation. Thank you.
Great, sir.